everyone, and welcome once again to CHRYTV. Christ has redeemed you, where we are evangelizing globally for the kingdom of God. I'm so glad you're here with me today in the living room. And this is where we sit and talk and reflect and learn and allow God to meet us in the real places of life. You know, today's conversation is intended to be very personal. It may touch the heart, or it may bring back memories. It may cause some of us to pause and to think about the things we never had the courage to say. So the topic today is the conversation we never had with our parents. You know, it's not intended to blame the parents or to shame the children or even to reopen bad wounds without offering some kind of healing. It is a conversation where we should bring about some form of understanding. It's about forgiveness. It's about the emotional gaps in families. It's about generational silence. It's about the things we wished we had asked and the things we had heard. And the things we now have the opportunity to look at differently. You see, sometimes families love, but they do not always know how to speak to each other. Sometimes love is present or was present, but the words are missing. Nobody taught us how to communicate in some instances. Sometimes the father work all the time or the mother work, you constantly make sacrifices. You're present, but the tenderness, the sharing is missing. Sometimes you can provide as all you can. You provide, you work. You believe that all that you have done is something that should be appreciated. But in doing so, the emotional connection is missing. And so today, I hope we can sit down and look at it with compassion and wisdom and faith. So before we go any further, let's just say a short prayer. Father, in the name of Jesus, we invite you into this conversation. Lord, you know every family. You know every parent. You know every child. You know the words that were spoken, and you know the words that were never spoken. You know the heart. You know the homes where there was love, but not enough understanding. You know the heart that still carry questions, pain, regret, and longing. So, Father, today, help us to speak with grace. Help us to listen. Help us to remember with compassion. And help us to heal through your love. Teach us, Lord, to forgive. Teach us to understand. Teach us how to break unhealthy cycles and build healthier families for the next generation. May this conversation bring healing, not bitterness, wisdom, not blame, and peace, not confusion. In Jesus' mighty name, I pray. Amen. So before we begin, I have this video that I want to show. I think it will be appropriate at this time. Bear with me. I got the video I was watching, as I wanted to come up with a topic. I was on the internet and came across
I'm gonna be a bum or something like that, or like she says that I'm not gonna be nothing, I'm gonna be like my dad, or I'm gonna be a bum or something like that, or she'll be like, if you keep on being out in these streets and hanging out with these people, you're gonna die. She tries to manipulate my brother and tells him things like he'll do something and then he was like, she'll be like, you probably got that from your brother, or you probably got that from watching him and doing what he do. You don't want to be like him. That makes me feel like you don't want my little brother to like me or something like that. You know what I'm saying?
Has she ever told you that she doesn't like you?
Yeah, she was like, I hate you. She said, I wish I never had you.
When did she say that?
She said that probably last year. It was actually a day before my granddad's funeral. And we got into a real bad fallout. It's times that like I go through it. Like I just bawl out and cry. I'd be on a bus or something going to school and I'd think about it and I'd cry. Yeah, so
what do you need from your mom today?
For more love, more understandingness, and just for us to get along.
Yeah.
I don't want to argue every day. I just want all love. That's it. As long as I know that she actually loves me and cares for me, then I'll be good.
Got it. Well, listen, Brandon says he's not the reason why his relationship with his mother, Queta, is so toxic. He says he's not the one who needs a reality check, if that is his mother. Let's hear what she has to say. Everyone, please welcome Brandon's mom, Queta, to the show.
So, you see, I had to start there because every situation begins somewhere. So, a conversation we never had with our parents matter because, you see, silence and bad words shape who our children become. Like this young man, you can see that is carrying things, and he will grow up with it, carrying things from his childhood into adulthood. And he has a family, and that family may never understand the root of the situation. You see, here he is saying his mother, I listened to the entire video, and the mother said, I love him. But you see, did she know how to show that love? No, maybe not. And so you have to look at the family history. So let me go through and see how we can keep coming back to that video. You see, maybe she was loved. Maybe she never felt as if anybody heard her, like this young man. Maybe she was protected. You see, she's trying to protect him. Maybe, she is emotional. She wants him to be safe. But is she doing it correctly? Maybe her parents, she's protecting him from something because he's saying that she doesn't want him on the street, basically. Whichever parent. There's no parent who is going to want to see your child hanging out on the street. But the approach is what mattered there. So they sacrifice, they cook, clean, they pay the bills. The parents, they correct us, send us to school, and sometimes they pray with us. But maybe they never sat down and said, as in this case, how are you feeling? What's happening today? How was school? So some people grow up in homes where everything practical was taken care of. That's the flip side. But they might have been brought up in rich homes with helpers. And I know a situation like that, where the children grow up with the helpers. And the helpers take full control of everything. And the helper will become the most important person to the children. You see? But the emotional needs were ignored. Of course, food was always on the table, clothes were washed, the school fees are paid, they attend church, and discipline was given. But how? None of the parents asked, "Are you okay?" Nobody explained or ever said, "I am so proud of you." Nobody ever said, "I am sorry for hurting your feelings. I said something that I shouldn't have said." Nobody ever said, and this is key and very important, "I love you," in a way that the child could feel it. And because of that, some adults today are still carrying childhood questions. Some questions like, "Did you see me? Did you understand me? Were you proud of me? Why were you so hard on me? Why did you never apologize to me? You said this, you hurt me so badly. Did you know I was hurting? Did you love me? Or were you only responsible for me?" Now, think of all these questions, because at least two of them, all of us possibly have asked our parents at some point. These are very deep questions. And for many people, they remain unanswered for years. But here is what I want us to understand from the beginning. Many parents did not fail to speak because they did not care. Some parents failed to speak because nobody taught them how. You see, when you become a parent, in many instances, there is nobody to tell you what to do, and there is no book that comes with parenting. And that's one of the reasons why I say, if you grow up in an extended family where there are grandparents, oftentimes it's a big help, because when the parents are gone out to work, the grandparents are often there, if they are older enough, to advise. The other thing is that some parents love us the only way they know how. You see, one of the most important things we can say in this conversation is this: that parents love us the way they know how, but it does not excuse every wrong thing. It does not erase pain. It does not mean every behavior was healthy, but it helps us to understand. You see, it helps us to understand. This is how they know how to. And if when the child is young enough, they can understand that, then it would go a far way. Some people will never understand because something is always missing in all of this. Now, many of our parents come from generations where survival was the priority. They were not raised in homes where people talk about how they feel. They were not raised with words like trauma, emotional wellness, mental health. affirmations, boundaries, or healing. And if you grew up in the Caribbean like we do, like I did, nobody's going to talk to you about your emotional wellness. All right, maybe now there's a change, but in my time, nobody's talking to you about emotional wellness. Nobody's talking to you about trauma. They're not expecting that you could have any kind of trauma. Not at all. You're not supposed to, because you don't work. So, you see, people, there's something that goes beyond all of that. And so I was speaking with a psychologist recently, and she's a specialist in it, actually. And I have to keep referring to her because I actually was learning a lot from what she was saying. So I kept my head just bouncing like a ball. But anyways, many children were raised to be strong, especially the boys. The poor boys, they can't cry. You're a boy, you're not supposed to cry, which is so wrong. They were raised to be strong, to work, to provide, to endure, to obey, to never complain, to keep the family business inside the family, to move on, to survive. Think about it. All men in particular, you can't cry. You have to be working. You have to endure. You're a family man. And things happen in the family and you have to keep it to yourself. Your family, your husband is beating the neck and out of you and you can't say anything, or vice versa, because men get beat too. So when they become parents, they gave what they had. What else? They can't give anything else but what they had. Some know that they're providers, so they will give the food because that's how they understood love. I will always provide. Food is always on the table. Some discipline you, beat the heck out of you, or punish you in ways that you never understand what they're protecting you from. But that's how they know how to. Some will give education because that's how they understood opportunity. And some tell you go to church. You have to go to church. That's how they understood spirituality. And this is a typical, all of what I've mentioned here is typical to what I know in the Caribbean. Some other aspects, if you're fortunate and more wealthy, you give money and you give shelter and sacrifice. But they did not know how to give emotional language. And so the child may grow up thinking, my mother never loved me or my father never cared, when the truth is more complicated. I have another video that I created for this, and let me show it to you. Let's see if I got it right.
Let me tell you something. I owe you nothing. If you carried that bag 1,000,000 miles, you did what you were supposed to do. Because you brought me into this world. And from that day, you owed me everything you could ever do for me, like I will owe my son if I ever have another. But you don't own me. You can't tell me when or where I'm out of line, or try to get me to live my life according to your rules. You don't even know what I am, Dad. You don't know who I am. You don't know how I feel, what I think. And if I try to explain it the rest of your life, you will never understand. You are 30 years older than I am. You and your whole lousy generation believes the way it was for you is the way it's got to be. And not until your whole generation has lain down and died will the dead weight of you be off our backs. You understand? You've got to get off my back. Let me tell you something. I owe you nothing. If you carried that bag a million miles, you did what you were supposed to do. Because you brought me into this world. And from that day, you owed me everything you could ever do for me, like I will owe my son if I ever have another. But you don't own me. You can't tell me when or where I'm out of line, or try to get me to live my life according to your rules. You don't even know what I am, Dad. You don't know who I am. You don't know how I feel, what I think. And if I try to explain it the rest of your life, you will never understand. You are 30 years older than I am. You and your whole lousy generation believes the way it was for you is the way it's got to be. And not until your whole generation has lain down and died will the dead weight of you be off our backs. You understand? You've got to get off my back. Let me tell you something.
So that will cover some of what I've already said and what will come. You see, children grow up thinking all kinds of things, and it's all, I think in a lot of instances, I think from what a video said, that this was a sort of a privileged young man. And he had the opportunity now. His father wanted to control him, and he had the opportunity now to tell his father how he felt. You see, maybe the father is trying to love him. The father loved. He never know how to express himself. Look at how docile he stood, even as his son is sort of giving him some facts. See? He don't know how to express his love in a way that he could receive it. And so the son is back doing basically the same, or maybe drawing a line somewhere. You know, everything the father is proud of him, and, you know, think that maybe he grew up now, he will come back and help him to live his old age in a better way after sacrificing so much for him. So this is why we must sometimes ask, who was my mother before she became my mother? Who was my father before he became my father? What happened to them? What are the experiences they have? What are the expectations that they have? What did they survive? What were their thoughts? What did they think? What are they thinking, even when I was a child bringing me up? What were they denied? What pain did they endure? What are they hiding? What dreams did they lose? You know, many parents, many women, as soon as they become pregnant, if they become pregnant in their teenage years, the parents kick them out. Lost opportunity, because if you're young, how are you going to bring up a child with very little education? And some parents kick them out, and then some of them survive, and the parents expect that now that they become privileged, or they have survived what they thought was their lesson to them, that they are entitled to now be benefiting from such a child. But the child has had a frustration that he has been carrying for years. And in the video I showed you before, It could be that with Sydney. What fears did they hide? What fears are the parents hide? Did the parents hide from me, from you, that you don't know anything about? So, because before they were parents, they were people. They had all of those experiences because they were people. And sometimes we cannot understand a parent until we understand who that person is. And we may never, because a parent might feel so embarrassed to disclose the experiences that they have had in their lives. And of course, maybe what about a parent what about a parent who was a prostitute, for example, or a parent who had been to jail? They may hide those secrets those facts from their children because they're ashamed to disclose it. So let us talk about emotional gaps in families. Emotional gaps are not always something that you can see. It's something quiet. But if you're good, you might be able to identify it. For example, do they ever give you a hug? Can they ever say, I am sorry, I never came over, I never visited you? Can they ever ask you, I embarrassed you, how did you feel about it? That's an apology. Can they apologize? The truth that was never explained, can they ever explain why they abandoned you? Are you worthwhile? Why did they dump you in the garbage? Can they? They might want to encourage you. Okay, don't have your children before don't get married, don't get pregnant in your teenage years. But they never tell you what will get you pregnant or how you're going to get pregnant. So they will encourage you to go to school, pass your exams, but they don't tell you why all of that is important. The affection that they never show, they never say, come, let me give you a hug. They never share anything. But you can often see in many instances that they're in pain if you're smart, because that's why I can say that children who are brought up in very poor situations, many of them can recognize when the parents are suffering, are trying to do their best, and they use it as an encouragement to accomplish great things to make their parents proud. But is it that these parents are doing something a little different? Might be saying, encouraging them, maybe talking to them. You got to find a gap there. But something is different. Why some children are more successful, even from poverty, than those that are not. And if I may ask you to read one book, it's The Jamaican Millionaire, by Alty Davis. He is a good story. He was on my show at some point, and it was a good story of how he came from poverty to multimillionaire now. So you see, in his life, in this book, he will tell you who his mother was. And so she did something differently from, I think, many other parents. What about a parent who came from the slum, and your son end up being a gunslinger or a murderer? Did these parents do something differently? Maybe. So there are families where people can sit around the same table and eat the same food, attend the same church, celebrate birthdays, and they still not know emotionally each other. You see, they can know what each person does. I am daddy, I am father, I go to work, I work the field, I do this, I do that. But there's never a time when a father ever sits and talks about his work, what he does, so the children can appreciate him even more. Not even to even the wife. He gets up, he goes to work every morning, he comes home, he gets up again, and he goes to work and keep on repeating is this laborious thing. And nobody says, Dad, I am so proud of you. And maybe it could be reciprocal. He could say to his children, I am so proud of you. You're doing so well. You know, in times like that. But they do not know how each other feels. They may not know the family history. They do not know the family wounds. They know the rules, but they do not know reasons. As in the case of a mother who does not, she got pregnant early. She knows the wounds she suffered, what happened to her, the sacrifices she had. Now she had her child who has now become of age and can have children. And she's just saying to them, I don't want you to have sex before marriage. I don't want you to go outside and play with your friends. You see that boy there? And she'd never say why. So some homes are full of people, but they are emotionally quiet. I love you. I love to see how you're trying. I have this expectation of you, but in order for you to accomplish it, you do this. You see, and because nobody talk, it is passed on. Children learn to suppress. They learn, do not ask too many questions. Do not cry. Do not speak about pain. Do not challenge elders. Do not say how you really feel. Just move on. Nobody cares. But you see, unspoken pain does not disappear. It shows up later in life. It shows up in relationships. It shows up in marriages. It shows up in parenting. You know, it shows up in anger, in insecurity, in fear of rejection, in difficulty trusting people. It shows up in deep need to be validated. Think about that. So you have, for example, a relationship where even the husband or the girl, she can't trust the guy to be by himself or to go anywhere without her knowing where he's going, because he's going to cheat, or he's going to have another baby mama, or whatever it is. You see, these insecurities, these things that happen in the past always show up somewhere in the children. Over protecting your child, over everything. Fear of rejection, difficult to trust in people, always want to be validated. You see that in the workplace as well. Sometimes a child who never heard, "I'm so proud of you," becomes the adult who overworks to prove their worth. Sometimes a child who was never emotionally comforted becomes the adult who does not know how to receive comfort. Sometimes a child who was always criticized becomes that adult who hears correction as rejection. "I don't want to hear anything from you. Who do you think you are to tell me what to do?" They don't know how to accept a little criticism. Sometimes a child who was never allowed to speak becomes the adult who either stays silent or explodes because it doesn't know how to express themselves. They don't know what to do. And then these things, this is one of the reasons why I believe that among our Black children, these are some of the reasons why they act as they do and they do the things that they do, because nobody is listening to them. Nobody is allowing them to speak in the home where it matters most. So they explode. They get into fights. They pull whatever machine they have and they do things without even thinking, in wrath, because they don't know how to express themselves and they don't know how to talk about what they are, how they're feeling. So that is why this conversation matters to me, because what is not healed can be repeated, and what you never say can be passed down. So let's talk about generational silence. You see, generational silence is when pain, habits, emotional distance can pass from one generation to another without being questioned. For example, a grandmother did not talk about her feelings. You have them. Doesn't talk about her feelings. So her daughter did not talk about her feelings. Then the granddaughter became the mother and did not talk how to talk about feelings with her own children. I can relate to some of this because I remember even as a teenager, when I was going to school and just about having my period, I didn't know nothing about period until my friend tells me. And then I didn't even know that, certain things can happen to you once you're having your period. My friend told me. So also, if a father was raised with harsh discipline and no affection, what happens when he becomes a father? He was taught being hard was the same as being responsible. So he's a brutal father. He'll beat the hell out of you. And he'll beat his wife too. And he'll just, nice big tough father, sits at the table and he picks up the newspaper and he reads the newspaper, no conversation. He will cross his leg and that's being a tough father. All he knows how to do is to provide. Nothing else. No love, no conversation. I think that was something present so much in my time. Well, I think it still is present today. So he will think that being soft would make his children weak. It's tough. If the way you treat the person who works in the yard, if it's you, works in the yard at your place, you will think that you have to be harsh. Do that. treat them like they're nobody. And so you come and you have your helper, and they do the same thing. And you become person of importance, and you do the same thing. You talk to people as if they're insignificant. You think that you're superior over these people because that's how you were brought up. So he doesn't know any of that. To say, so, as a person in the family, he would say, he would not say, I love you. He couldn't. He doesn't know how to. All he knows how to do is to pay the bills. And that is enough for you as your child to love him. And so generation after generations, families pass down this silence, pass down emotional distance, pass down fear and pride. They can't say, I'm sorry. There's just total inability to apologize. And in my time, they believe that children should be heard and not, should be seen and not heard. So that is also passed down too. But I love to refer to this good book, the Bible. The Bible gives us wisdom about how families should have relationships. In Ephesians 6, 1-4, it says, and I often refer to this, children, obey your parents in the Lord, for this is right. Honor your father and your mother. And fathers, do not provoke your children to anger, but bring them up in the discipline and the instruction of the Lord. So the key thing for me always has been, do not provoke your children to wrath, but bring them up in the discipline and the instruction of the Lord. And that is deep. It goes on to say, be kind to others, treat others the way you would like others to treat you. My words. Well known. So the scripture is very powerful because it speaks to both sides. It tells children to obey your parents, don't disrespect them, But what if, this is another topic I could talk about, what if what the parent is telling you, is wrong? That's a big question. What they're telling you to do, because there are some parents who will tell their children to do wrong. What kind of parent is that? So that's another question for another time that deserves being answered. So parenting is not just about having authority. It should be about responsibility. It's not also about correction. It should also be about care. It's not only about giving instructions, but also about nurturing the heart. The Bible does not give parents permission to crush the spirit of a child. It does not give children permission to dishonor parents either. It calls both sides to walk in righteousness, humility, and love. And this is where many families need healing. Many children don't know how to honor because they were never taught. They don't know how to learn. They were never taught humility because their parents don't know humility. They have this pomp and pride, and they're always right. You can see that even in some leaders today. Nobody knows anything more than them. Some families need to learn how to speak without attacking. And this is so wrong too. Some families, what they do is brutalize you, slap you left, right, and center if you dare to try to speak back. And the fear is the poor child can't speak back because it was never taught how to. So it may come out with a sort of aggression. So parents, families are not listening to what the child has to say, which is so important. And so the child will go to school, and the behavior is there too, because the child don't know how to say, teacher, you are wrong, or I am wrong, or Johnny did that, in a way that does not sound as if you are angry. So these are really important for children to learn how to do. Some families also need to learn how to listen. Listening is important. Somehow this is come back to communication. Communicate with your child. Communicate with your husband. Communicate with your wife. It is important. Some families need to learn that saying, you know what, I was wrong. And saying that I'm wrong does not make me or you look weak. It makes healing possible. My grandmother said when I was getting married a long time ago, she said, never let the sun go down on your wrath. And I don't think it means only for couples. It goes for anybody. Never let the sun go down on your wrath. So you forgive and you make up. You talk about your situation before the sun goes down. How wonderful that is. Now, so let's talk about, I'm going to touch on this a little bit. Let's talk about the conversation we wish we had with our parents. For some people, their parents are still alive. But the conversation can feel very difficult still, depending on the age gap. For others, their parents have passed on, and the conversation can no longer happen, but you wish you had. So for some, in relationship is closed. The relationship is closed. I can't tell my husband or my wife, you did this, you were so-and-so, and so we couldn't get along, we're divorced. For others, it's complicated, complicated is complicated. And some, the memories are warm, still warm and painful. Some are painful. But many people still carry the questions. Maybe you wish you had asked your mother. Mother, you think about it. Wish you had asked your mother questions that are unanswered. What was your childhood, my mother's childhood like? What was my mother's childhood like? And she'll tell you. Were you happy, mother? What dreams did you have before life became so hard? Did you ever feel alone? There's so many questions. Did you ever feel like giving up, mother or dad? Did you ever know I needed you emotionally? Were you proud of me? What did you need that nobody gave you? I remember that when I had my children, my mother, though she was alive, when I needed a babysitter, she would say something like, she never had a babysitter for us, so she's not doing it for us. That is not nice. So maybe you wish you had asked your father to. What were you afraid of, Dad? Who taught you how to be a man? And it's so important that men get this kind of lessons. They should have a male figure in their life who can give them something, who can teach them how to be a man. Can you imagine your boys growing up with women? Don't you think they're going to become almost effeminate without a man around them? They don't know how to be a man. They don't know the role men play. So they marry and they have a wife. And what are they going to do? They're going to expect the wife to do everything that their mother did. And that is not what being a good husband is like. So the poor woman will divorce them. Yes. So why was it hard for you to show affection? You know, all these questions, so many questions. Did you know your silence hurt me? Were you trying to protect me? You know, so many questions. And I leave that for you to come up with. So the questions are not easy, but they are coming from the heart. They are what humans confront. And they come from a longing to understand. Sometimes people are not just looking for answers. They're just looking for connection. They're looking for the missing story. We are trying to understand why things happened the way they did. So this is a very long conversation, and I would like to pick it up with some more, with a guest, which I will have for the next part of this video. I want to tell you, thank you so much for joining me in the living room. I pray that, you know, this opens up something, this conversation with me opens something up for you to think about. And remember, please like and subscribe to CHRYTV in the living room. Please do that. I have nearly 7,500 viewers. But one of the things I need some viewing hours. I need more people to view the videos. And I also need you to please subscribe and please support. If you support us, I can hire somebody to help me more often to do my cameras, to expand. I would really like to leave a legacy for some younger generation to continue with. May God bless you. Thank you for watching in the living room. And again, I am Stephanie Lopez. Thank you. God bless you. Bye for now.